Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. If you're just joining the channel, welcome. I am telling some stories and doing some crafts. That's what this whole segment's about. That's what we're doing. If you are not just joining and you've been here for a long time, welcome back. I missed you. How's everything going? I hope you're doing well. So anyways, while I am working on these autumn grimoires, I am also telling you guys some spooky stories in a segment that I am calling Tales of the Paranormal. And you're going to find that this one today is going to be a doozy in more ways than one. And I'll get into that in a second. But I just want to iterate at the top because I feel like if I don't say anything, then nobody thinks it's okay to like suggest anything. So you can always leave me a suggestion for a story that you want to hear. It does not have to be spooky. I can always add it to my list of non-spooky stories to tell, because once Halloween ends, it never ends in my heart ever. But once the date passes by, we're going to be back to our regular programming, which is going to be fairy tales, myths, and cool stories that I think are cool to share. So yeah, you can leave me some suggestions for stories that you want to hear, things that, you know, maybe you haven't heard of or you've really heard of, but you just want to hear my version of it. You can leave that down below. And in regards to this segment, I would definitely love to hear some suggestions, because at this point, I'm just sort of throwing darts at a wall for what might be paranormal or spooky and seeing what sticks. And that's how we got to today's subject, because I didn't know what to do this week. So if you have a spooky story that you would like me to tell, maybe a local legend, or, I don't know, something that really got underneath your skin as a kid and you just kind of like are always creeped out by it, definitely leave that in the comments below. I would love to have your suggestions. I need your suggestions. Otherwise, this segment's going to get progressively more random as time goes by. That being said, I know this is a very long intro, but I'm still collecting stories to do our October Spooktacular segment, and I've gotten some stories which are really exciting. They're really good, you guys. They're really good, and I know a couple people have messaged me to tell me that they are also working on their stories, but there's still time. You can send me your story, your personal ghost story, and I will read it during our October special. I want to do like a nice long special and like just have some like creepy stories that we can listen to on Halloween. I think that's going to be really fun. So definitely, please, if you have a spooky story, I would love to hear it. You can send it to me via my socials, via my email. All that's in the description box below. So let's get into it. What are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about stairs. And I told you guys, I was literally, I'm literally just mentally, throwing darts at the wall to see what sticks. And I started thinking about spooky staircases. They show up a lot when I'm looking for, like, aesthetic pictures to put together for, like, mood boards and inspiration boards on my Pinterest. There's always those, like, lone stairs in the woods. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm going to talk about. And then I started doing some research, and I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And here's why. So a couple years ago, this was like a huge thing. It was trending on the internet, not on social media, just on the internet, specifically on Reddit, and then it turned into like creepypasta. And here's what happened. A Redditor pointed out that there's this interesting phenomenon where once you go like about 60 feet into the forest, you start to enter sort of mystical forest territory, right? And then the deeper into the woods you go, the higher the likelihood is that you will find an abandoned staircase, a staircase to nowhere. And this was such a thing that, like, it started to get, like, incredible submissions. People were sending in all their pictures. They just started popping up everywhere, all over the place. Pictures of these staircases in the woods that led to nowhere. People were sharing their stories about, like, you know, friends walking up the staircase and disappearing, or hearing strange voices, or people just, you know, on a hike trying out these staircases, and then when they get back down the stairs, it's nightfall, and, like, you know, time has been totally displaced. Super creepy, super atmospheric, right? They even had, like, some park ranger people being like, oh yeah, we're so used to seeing those stairs, like, that's a thing, we just ignore the stairs. And all these little, like, legends started to creep up, whether it was, like, they were ghost stairs, or portals to other dimensions, or portals to the Fey realm, so, like, don't mess with them. Which, like, granted, do not walk up random stairs, you see? Like, anything can be a portal. Don't do that. Be smart. Don't let the Fey catch you. At any rate, all these stories started to come up, right? And then, and this is where the stair thing, like, really stood out to me. I had this, like, visceral memory as I'm looking at this like staircase of a creepypasta story I heard about an abandoned staircase in the woods. And I was like, okay, so if it is enough of a phenomena to become someone's creepypasta fodder, there has to be some sort of like semblance of something to it, right? Wrong. No, it's nothing. It's like a big internet hoax. It's kind of like that clown thing where like all those people are dressing up like clowns for a while and just terrifying people for the lulz. It's kind of like that. Some of these stairs aren't actually quote unquote like to nowhere. They were stairs that were like built to be the foundation of like a new house, like part of the foundation, and then the housing project or whatever project got abandoned and then they just got left there. Some of these stairs are just like art installations, and some of these stairs are actual stairs that were built in to accommodate like hiking trails and helping people get down like hills and stuff. So like they're out there for reasons. Some of them are just the reason is art, and I'm not gonna say that like that excuses all stairs in the woods. Don't do that. Don't take stairs in the woods. It's just, you know, maybe take the hiking trail stairs, but don't take out all the other stairs. Don't do that. And be sure it's a hiking trail stair because you guys, the Fae are trying to get you. So after like realizing that like my stairs in the middle of nowhere, my spooky ghost story was bunk and busted because there's really not a lot to it and not a lot of like credibility to it outside of the fact that like it's a internet urban legend, right? Because those are things now in this modern age, as I date myself horribly, where the internet builds our urban legends and sort of becomes part of our mythology, and I would love to talk about that for a very long time. It's not the point of this video, so I'm going to try to move on quickly, but the internet like builds our modern day mythology, and our new urban legends sort of get crowdfunded on the internet, which is very fascinating, and I am absolutely like intrigued by the concept. We talked about it a little bit when we talked about the black-eyed children and how this story sort of got popular on the internet, and this was like early internet time, right? And it took off like crazy, and it still persists to this day. Like you can still see recent TikToks of people sharing their experiences with black-eyed children. So this like internet urban legend has continued on in the same way that the staircase to nowhere ghost story sort of mythology has continued on as well. So that is super fascinating. It's not exactly a story, and this is storycraft. So you might be like, Priscilla, why are we even talking about this? Well, because in my hunt of spooky stair stories, I found and sort of recovered a memory. Because there's this podcast I listen to called The Witch Bitch Amateur Hour. I love them. I definitely recommend them. But they do a spooky-sode every couple of episodes. And one of the episodes they did was on the Devil's Stairs. And I remembered that as I was like, well, what story are you going to tell now? Oh, I can tell the story about the Devil's Stairs because that's a spooky ghost story, right? So instead of going back to try to figure out which spooky-sode it was, the sode with all the information about the stairs, I just did my own research. But I would definitely recommend checking them out. They're a wellspring of information, especially if you're like a beginner witch, because they just pick one item to talk about forever. And it's wonderful. It's so fulfilling, so satisfying. I love it. They're great. But when I typed in the Devil's Stairs into Google to like do my research, because that's how I research things, it turns out there's a lot of things called the Devil's Stair. In fact, like around the world, there are Devil's Staircases and Devil's Stairs and all sorts of things. So it took me a very long time to figure out which one in particular I was trying to talk about. And I found the one that they had mentioned. Thank you, memory, for coming through. There's not a lot of story to tell, but I'm going to tell you about it. But I also found another one, so we're going to talk about that too, because both of these were very interesting to me, and I went down a little rabbit hole in research about them. So, on the subject of spooky stairs, I'm going to talk to you guys about the Devil's Stair, which isn't really called the Devil's Stair. That's like the hyperbolic, super edgy edgelord name of it. It's actually called the 100-Step Cemetery, and the staircase is called the 100-Step Stair. So the idea behind these stairs are actually in Indiana. According to the internet, it's nestled between Brazil, Indiana, which might just be Brazil, knowing how things are like flipped up there, but I don't know. I'm not from Indiana. I don't know how you say it. But it's nestled between Brazil, Indiana, and Terre Haute, I don't know how you say that either. In the community of Cloverland, which the internet points out is unincorporated, which just seems rude. It seems rude to Cloverland. But there's a cemetery known to the locals as the 100 Steps Cemetery. And there's this, like, whole ghost story. There's a legend behind it. The cemetery is actually not that old, you know, like, as far as cemeteries go. But the legend is that you have to visit the cemetery at midnight on a night without a moon, so like a super, super dark night, and then it has to be so dark that you can't see your hands in front of you. So that means, like, no flashlights, no cell phone lights, nothing. Like, you need to be in the pitch black, and you need to go to these stairs, and then you need to climb up the stairs. There's going to be 100 stairs, right? And you have to count the stairs as you climb up. And when you get to the top, you're going to meet the original undertaker for the cemetery. He's not going to say anything to you. He's just going to be like an apparition there. And what he's going to do is show you a vision of your own death. And then you have to turn around, you know, put your back to the ghost, and then go down the stairs, but also have the presence of mind after watching how you die to count the steps. Because when you get to the bottom, if the number of steps that you counted going up is not the same as the number of steps going down, then the way that you saw you were going to die is how you're definitely going to die. If they match, then your death is, like, unknown. It's not going to be what they showed you, which is shenanigans. But there's also a couple other, like, little tidbits of information here, because it's bad luck if you get to the top of the steps and you didn't count 100, right? That means bad vibes, right? Because at some point you missed a step or two, and the ghost tricked you. So already you're going to be out of sync. You're not going to be able to match your steps when you go back down. So the way that you're supposed to know is not if you, like, verbally trip up, but if you don't even notice that you've missed the step. That's how you know the ghost messed with you and your death is guaranteed. Whatever vision you have at the top of the stairs is guaranteed. Now, at the top of the stairs, there's a whole cemetery. Apparently, it's like an older cemetery, but it's also been vandalized a lot by the people that go there, which is unfortunate. So don't mess with the tombstones. But this is part of the reason, like, the ghosts are so angry, because their graves keep getting, like, messed up and vandalized. But also, important to note is that you cannot skip the steps on your way up to the cemetery. You have to take the steps to the top, because if you try to, like, sneak around and go up the hillside and just climb the hill, like, numerous people have reported that ghostly hands will push you down the hill. So if you try to cheat, you get shoved by ghost, which doesn't seem very cool. And sometimes when you get shoved by these ghosts, you end up with a red handprint on your body, which is, like, thought to be like a mark of the devil, because we're all very edgy when we have, like, ghost stories. And you can end up seeing these marks on your body for several days after the fact. So you end up with, like, a red welt that doesn't go away for a very long time. There's a lot of, like, stories about this. A lot of people have reported seeing ghosts up there in the cemetery. A lot of people have reported having, like, time and space be distorted going up and down the stairs, being confused so much that they lose count, and, becoming terrified and having to run back down the stairs because, if you can't match your numbers, then you're definitely going to die the way that you saw, so you have to have a very accurate count. It's a spooky, and it's a staircase, and it's not an isolated incident, like I said, because this happens all around the world. There's devil staircases everywhere, like left, right, top, center, all over the world. These spooky stairs, right? So that brings me to Spokane, Washington, which I've heard pronounced Spokane as well, and I don't know what the right way to pronounce it is, so I'm going to Spokane because that's how the news guy said it on the news clip I watched. And I feel like if you're doing the news there, then you might know how to say it. I don't know. But here we go. So there in Spokane is the Greenwood Cemetery. And they have what's been deemed one of the most haunted staircases in America, the 1,000 Steps staircase. And this staircase, you guys, is not 1,000 steps. It's not 1,000 at all. So these stairs that aren't 1,000, are actually located in a part of the cemetery that's sort of abandoned and a little bit run down. The stairs themselves are kind of cracked and decaying and aren't the safest to traverse, but can be traversed, allegedly. I mean, the news guy did it in his segment, but that was in the daytime, and I feel like that doesn't count. But according to legend, you can't make it to the top of the staircase. So if you start at the bottom of the stairs and you try to walk up to the top, you'll either be overcome by fear, or you'll see ghosts, or you'll get turned around, lose your sense of space, and end up walking down the bottom before you realize what's happened. So you can't walk from the bottom to the top without being interrupted in some kind of way by spookies. And it's been rumored to be the site of deaths, satanic rituals. A lot of people report seeing ghosts there, which is interesting because nobody's actually buried on this part of the cemetery, and I'll tell you why. It's because this was like a cemetery. It's not that old either. It's only like about 100 years old. And the Elks Lodge in the area had made an arrangement with the cemetery curators, the cemetery planners, to have like their own section of the cemetery. So they were paying for this to get built. They built up a mausoleum. They've had a statue put in. Pretty brass and copper things were stuck up there. It was all decked out and really nice. And the plan was to have it have a couple levels. And so there was going to be one level for all the Elks Lodge members to be buried together so they could be buried with all their brothers. And on the other level would be like the wives and family of the Elks members. And it turns out that when you tell your wife you'd rather be buried with your bros than her, it just doesn't go well. So the wives were like, that's not cool. I don't want to be separated from you in the afterlife. And they were like, well, shit. And then the Elks Lodge, guys got distracted, and weren't really, raising money to continue this project. So they slowly, trickled down on how much they were paying the cemetery to build all this stuff up for them. And over time, they had to end up stripping, a lot of the, stuff that was already built of its metals, the brass and stuff that they had put there, to continue to fund the Elks Lodge and this project, to the point where they ended up breaking off their contract with the cemetery planner people, and just sort of abandoning the idea of having their own special segment of this graveyard. And turns out you have to pay for things if you want them. It didn't work out for them, so they sort of let this go. But people think that because they built all this stuff up in the cemetery and then stripped it of, all of its decorations, they had to sell their Elks Lodge statue, all these things had to be stripped out and taken out, then the only, nice things are left are the clock hands on the clock that was part of the mausoleum. That angered the ghost of the graveyard, and that's what caused this sort of section of the graveyard to get extra haunted. So it'd be irresponsible of me to point out that you're not actually supposed to climb the staircase because it is so broken down and busted now. And even if you were to get permission from the people there, it's not really safe at all to climb. So don't go climb the staircase because I told you you couldn't do it. You don't have to spite me. I believe you. You can do it. You can climb every staircase. I saw the news guy do it, so I know it can be done. But I just thought this was really interesting that there is this staircase. Both of these staircases, the one that I talked about in Indiana and this one in Washington, have connections or rumors or stories or legends. You know how these things build up as people talk about them over time. Where there's some sort of devil worship involved, there's ghost stories, and either the ghosts don't want you to go up the stairs, or if they do, they want you to go a certain way. A lot of people have reported having sort of similar experiences where they go up the stairs and then they just start screaming and they're overcome by fear. And it's just so intriguing to me because it's just stairs. It shouldn't be spooky. But these stairs are very spooky. They're extra spooky. And I think added to that sort of abandoned but pristine nature of those stairs that I was talking about in the beginning, the ones that are just left in the woods. Those stairs aren't ever run down and busted. They're very nice, well kept. Someone is out there making sure that these stairs don't get grungy and rusted and busted when everything else around them is overgrown with forest. And that's really weird because the forest should have taken over some of these stairs by now. But like because of that, because they stand out so much from the landscape, there's sort of that added like unnaturalness about them that makes them extra spooky. And I just thought, this is such a random topic, but I thought it was really fun, to just sort of explore spooky staircases, and then to see that not only was there like one or two of these stories, but they're worldwide. Everybody has like a spooky staircase in their country. At least there's one spooky staircase in your country, guaranteed. Get into the Google and find it, because it's there. You would be surprised. If you type in Devil's Staircase, you're going to be like, holy cow, there's a lot. And so that brings me to my next question, which would be, have you ever had a spooky encounter on a staircase? Because when you think about it, staircases in themselves are sort of a liminal space, because they're neither here nor there, right? Like the staircase is there wherever you're seeing it, but it takes you from one place to the other. You don't exist in a staircase. You're not supposed to live in staircases. If you've ever been in like a big building and you take their back staircases instead of the elevator, it is the creepiest shit in the world. Also, as a safety thing, don't take that alone, because people get murdered in those, guys. Like, it's not cool. So don't go into building staircases by yourself. That's for sure. The buddy system works beyond elementary school. But like, there's this weird sort of liminal space. If you've ever been like abandoned building trekking, the staircase is always kind of weird. And I think it's just because people pass through there, energy gets left behind. It's a transitional space from one place to the next, so it has that like liminal back room sort of feel. And it's not surprising that there would be ghost stories connected to that, or that lingering energy would build up over time to cause this sort of phenomena of spooky places. But also, they act as a gateway, because they take you from one place to another, so they are transitional. So I do see like how the connection to fairy portals and just portals to other dimensions come about. I can't remember the name of that creepypasta, and I wish I did. It was really good, but it was basically about a staircase that was a portal, and stuff came out of it, and it was wild. It was outrageous, and it was very unnerving for a creepypasta. And I really wish I could remember the name of it. Probably something like, "We found an abandoned staircase in the woods and you won't believe what happened next," because those titles are always like that. So I'm sure with a little bit of looking, it can be found. I should have looked before I started this. But yeah, let me know if you've ever had like an experience in a staircase. I find that I have like a lot of clear audio like experiences where I hear stuff like people saying hello, or calling my name, but then there's nobody there. And that's usually like in those spooky building staircase places. I don't see that so much in just like regular, like my apartment staircases. I've never had that experience. So maybe there's something to be said about like enclosed spaces that have staircases in them, being like sort of traps for energy that sort of cause that sort of effect. It could also just be like the echo of somebody several floors above me, like, or below. Like that's a thing too. I'm not going to discredit that, but those are the experiences that I've had. I haven't had anything like overwhelmingly spooky happen to me in a staircase, but I have had some like creepy moments where I'm like, oh, we're not alone. And then I run down the stairs, or I run up the stairs, and then I regret it because I can't really run. Petition to make all staircases escalators, because my knees. But yeah, that's going to be it for me, guys, because at this point I'm just going to start rambling about staircases. And how long can I talk about staircases? Well, honestly, as a person with ADHD, a very long time, a very, very long time. But this, I think, has been long enough. So if you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate your faces, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting. Bye.